Justice with Judge Mablean will be life, because in everything we do, it involves the law.
You came to court to testify about what you heard, what you saw, and what you know.
She's fair.
I don't have a hearing problem. This ear works good. This one works even better.
She's firm.
I'm not responsible for that ticket, and I'm not going to pay for it.
Who says you're not going to pay for it? I make that decision, not you.
She's honest.
What you have to say?
All I have to
Nothing.
say.
This is Justice with Judge Mablean. Kathleen Jefferson is suing her former employer, Harold Lansing, in the amount of $7,500. She says after sustaining a workplace injury, the defendant fired her upon returning to her job. Mr. Lansing claims the plaintiff's termination is unrelated to her being hurt on the clock.
All parties are sworn in, Your Honor.
Yes, you may be seated. In the matter of Kathleen Jefferson versus Harold Lansing, you're suing for $7,500 for wrongful termination. You're alleging that he sued you after you were injured on the job. I'm sorry, he terminated you after you were injured on the job. So tell me about it, please.
That's correct, and now he doesn't want to pay my medical bills. So we have to go back a year because I first got hurt initially when I was showing a house. I'm a realtor. I've worked for Mr. Lansing's company for almost 10 years. He's never had any complaints. And I was showing a house about a year ago, and I tripped. It wasn't my fault. There was a defective doggy door, and I tripped on it, and I sprained my ankle, which didn't seem like any big deal, except it got infected. And I had to go on bed rest, and I had to have a nurse come to my house. It was horrible. I ended up taking 3 whole months off, which I kept telling them about the whole time. They were fine with. Then when I came back, yay, so excited, back to work, everything was different. Like, everyone acted like I was new or something, like I was a totally new employee. My supervisor, Jacob, started calling clients behind my back and checking up on me and just basically acting like I was a trainee or something. Then, about 3 weeks after I came back, there was a fire drill. I didn't know it was a fire drill. All I heard was a fire alarm, and I rushed out of the building just like you're supposed to. Except that I strained my ankle again. I wasn't back to 100%, which my supervisor knew. So, and I went to the doctor immediately, and I had to be put back on bed rest again, which was so upsetting. I'm a very active person. I had a diagnosis of septic arthritis, which is terrible.
So how long did you have to be on bed rest this time?
This time, well, this time it was 2 months, but that's not even pertinent to the case because the day after I got hurt, I got a phone call from work, and I was fired because I guess it made more sense to them to fire me than pay my medical bills.
Okay, when you were injured before, did you go out on workers' comp?
Yes.
And did you get a letter from your doctor saying that you were able to return to work?
Yes.
And did he return you to work with any restrictions?
No, he said, like, if I got tired while I was standing at an open house or something, to sit down, but, I mean, there were no official restrictions.
Well, no doctor needs to tell you that. But did you have any restrictions on your return to work?
No.
And so he terminated you the second time when you re-sprained your ankle?
Yes.
Did you get a diagnosis then? You said it was septic arthritis.
Yes.
You have a copy of that diagnosis?
Well, I have a copy of the medical bill that says septic arthritis on it, yes. Careful, it's heavy because it's so big.
Thank you.
Yes, we appreciate Ms. Jefferson's time that she spent with the company and wish her a speedy recovery. Also, we were in the process of giving her termination papers processed before the fire drill even happened.
What happened? Why were you going to terminate her?
Well, because of poor performance. Her performance was bad. Yes.
So she had just come back to work and had been back less than a week, and it was poor performance?
No. She had been back for about 3 weeks, Your Honor.
Which is still a very small window.
And we had changed the different routines and policies of the company. We updated and upgraded, and she just wouldn't keep up with what we were doing at the company.
Updated what?
We updated our equipment, electrical equipment and stuff like that.
You mean your computer system and all of that?
Yes, our system.
So you got some new programs?
We got some new programs, new software. We brought all of this in, and she was having problems with her supervisor, Jacob, and she was bucking him every sense of the way. Every time he tried to give her some information on how to do this or how to do that, she was totally against what he was saying.
Had you given her any warnings about her poor performance, quote unquote?
No. I'm pretty sure that Jacob did.
Pretty sure?
Yes, he did. He did. He told me he did.
Did you give it to her in writing?
No, didn't give it to her in
Wouldn't
writing.
it
It
take
was
time for her to learn those new programs?
Yes, it would take time, and we was giving her time, but she didn't want to adhere to anything.
So
Your
when
Honor,
had you planned to terminate her?
The day before the fire drill. We had
You had
already
planned to terminate her,
Yes, we had already
but you
started.
had not terminated her.
Correct. We were
Okay.
going to terminate her the day after.
Whose idea was it for the fire drill?
We have this fire drill once a year.
Okay.
So it wasn't like she was new or didn't understand what was going on.
Oh, but we
She
didn't
had
know it
been
was a
there.
drill.
She had been there about 10 years. So we do it once a year.
So in the fire drill, are you upstairs? Do you have stairs you have to go down?
Yes, it's 12 flights of stairs.
12?
Yes, it is.
And she had been back 3 weeks.
She had been back 3 weeks. But now we didn't know that she was not 100%.
I told Jacob,
Why didn't
my
you know that?
supervisor.
Because she didn't tell us.
I told Jacob.
No, she did not tell Jacob. 'Cause
Okay.
Jacob did
Are
not
you
tell
Jacob?
me.
How would you know
Am
if
I
I told
talking or is
Jacob?
she talking? Who's
both
supposed
of
to
you
be
are talking, and I'm not going to say it not one more time. Ms. Jefferson's not going to help your case to argue with him.
Coming up on Justice with Judge Mablean.
You probably had a little jealousy over a young man coming in taking over, and you after you've been there for 10 years.
Absolutely. There's a real war on women in my office.
And later,
I didn't want her to come home with, and I have always watched after 2 weeks.
No. You answer my question, because it sounds like a whole bunch of bull to me.
Justice with Judge Mablean. You're watching Justice with Judge Mablean. We're back with the case of Kathleen Jefferson, who is suing Harold Lansing for wrongful termination.
So she goes to the fire drill. She told you she's injured after the fire drill. What happened?
She did not tell us. Oh, after the fire drill, yes. We were in the process, like I said, to fire her the day after.
That's what you and Jacob were talking about.
Yes.
You were going to terminate her the
We
next
were in
day.
the process of, yes, we were.
You were preparing the
very
termination
next day.
papers.
We were preparing her papers to be terminated that day.
Do you have any evidence of your work performance?
Of my work performance?
Yes.
Not with me, no.
Do you have any evidence of her work performance?
Yes,
After her return or before?
after her return.
Well, maybe I should let her see it, because she seems like she's never seen it.
I have not.
Well, let her
this
see
is
it
all
first.
a surprise to me.
See what he's talking about.
Because I can sell
Just
anything.
look at it and see if you ever saw that.
I can sell an igloo to an Eskimo.
It's not a surprise to her. We
This is a
explain these
complete
things to her.
I didn't ask you that. Did you ever see anything like that written document?
No, and
All right.
frankly, I'm
Let
surprised
me see
Jacob's
it.
literate.
If you have an attitude that your supervisor is illiterate, then that means you also have an attitude of working with your supervisor.
Well, he was a
That's not a good
fetus when I
attitude.
was hired.
I can't help that, but that's not a good attitude to think that he's illiterate. So if you're saying that, then that means that you were being insubordinate and not respecting his authority as your supervisor. It's real clear.
But I still got hurt on the job.
Is exactly
But
what
you
was
still got a
going on.
bad attitude, too.
Maybe.
And you probably had a little jealousy over a young man coming in taking over, and after you've been there for 10 years.
Absolutely. There's a real war on women in my office.
Oh, my goodness.
So
Here
then
we
you
go.
should have filed a case of discrimination based upon gender.
I didn't have time because I kept getting hurt during mandatory fire drills with 12 flights of stairs.
You may have been getting ready to fire her, but you had not fired her. So the problem with that is, once an employee is injured on the job, when you fire them right after an injury, it seems like retaliation. You can't fire them because of a medical condition. You just can't do it. You have to at least give them time to get through the medical condition, get ready to come back to work and perform. That's why you pay workers' compensation insurance. That's what it's all about.
That wasn't
So
the
I'm sorry,
case.
you can't terminate her, and I am going to do judgment for the plaintiff. You can either reinstate her, or you can pay her for the money that she's lost.
Well, I'll pay for the money because
Okay,
I
well, then
really
you pay
don't
it.
want it. Really don't want to have to deal with her anymore.
But I can also order you to reinstate and pay.
Oh.
Now, do you want to be reinstated? Do you want to go back there?
Yes.
No, she
It's
don't.
really a nice place to work.
No, she don't.
You just said it was war against women.
Well, that just because of Jacob. He's very young,
Now,
though.
I'm
He
not
doesn't
going to let you go
understand
back
the
there
ways of the world.
just to annoy them, because then you are going to get terminated for insubordination.
See,
And
that's
if you
the
get
problem.
terminated for insubordination, then you're not eligible for unemployment benefits, because you're going to get terminated for cause.
I'm not going to need unemployment because I can sell anything. I'll get a job somewhere else.
So you're going to take the $7,500 and run?
Yes, I will.
Okay, judgment for the plaintiff.
All rise.
Judge Mablean has ruled in favor of the plaintiff. The defendant is ordered to pay $7,500.
I'd pay $7,500 to get rid of you any day.
Well, I won't let the doggy door hit me on the way out.
Coming up,
So then why wasn't the dog a white dog full of red dye?
Because I took him to the groomers. I even have the receipt for it.
Excuse me?
I took him to the groomers to get the dye out because I figured she didn't want to come home to a dog with dye all over it. So I went and took the dog to the groomers to get clean.
Justice with Judge Mablean. You're watching Justice with Judge Mablean. Sarah Decker is suing her former roommate, Haley Lyles, in the amount of $465. She says the defendant stole her hair dye and stained her furniture and floor with it. Ms. Lyles claims the plaintiff gave her permission to use the hair product and alleges it was actually the dog that ruined her belongings.
In the matter of Sarah Decker versus Haley Lyles, suing for $465 for the damage to the your carpeting in the apartment, ruined by the dye.
Yes.
All right, tell me what happened.
Well, Your Honor, I'm suing my ex-roommate for $465 for the damage on the floor. A few months ago, I came home from work and there was dye all over the living room floor and the bathroom floor. I didn't say anything to her because I'm one to avoid confrontation, but the next morning I saw her and her hair was the same color as the dye on the floor. And so I brought it to her attention, and then we got into this heated argument, and about 2 days later, I came home from work again, and she was gone. All her stuff was gone, and she wouldn't answer my phone calls. And so I decided to sue her because it was $465, and I wanted to be paid back for the damages.
So when you confronted her the next day, she didn't say anything about the dye?
She did. She said that the dog got into it, and she was really defensive.
Dog?
Yes,
Who
I have
has
a
the
dog
dog?
named Chewy, and
That's your dog?
Yes,
So the dog Chewy chewed up the dye?
that's what she says. Yes.
And was the dog there when you got home?
Yes, and it's
Did
a
you notice
white,
any dye on the dog
No.
looking like that?
No, it's a white poodle. And it had
A
no
white
dye.
poodle?
A white poodle. It had no dye on the dog.
Your
And that's blonde hair?
Actually, her hair was dyed red at the time.
So you have a white poodle, red dye on the carpeting, in the living room and the bathroom, no red on the white poodle.
No.
All right. And she said it was the dog that got into it.
Yes.
And got upset with you and moved out.
Yes.
So you guys are renting the apartment, so you paid to have the carpet cleaned.
Yes, I paid to have the carpet clean.
Are you both on the lease?
Yes.
And you just walked out, Miss Liley? Is that it? Miss Lyles, you walked out on a lease?
Well, no, actually, I made an agreement that I would continue to pay rent for the remainder amount of time until the lease was up because I did feel bad.
Who did you make that agreement with?
With her. I mean,
She
I
said you
figured,
didn't talk to her.
I mean,
It's not true. Your
So
Honor.
when did this agreement come about?
well, I made it with the leasing office. I told them, look, I'm going to continue to pay rent here. Your rent is still going to get paid on time. So
And how much more time was left on the lease?
it was about 5 more months.
So did you really just walk out the next day or 2 days later after the argument?
Yes, but well, the reason why I walked out is because Sarah and I have known each other for such a long time, and she came at me. I saw a side of her I had never seen before. It was very aggressive. It was very scary, and I thought, if she doesn't like me living here, I don't want to stay in a toxic environment for either of us.
Coming up,
I didn't want her to come home with, and I have always watched after 2 weeks. She is gone-
No. You answer my question because it sounds like a whole bunch of bull to me.
closed captioning provided by. You're watching Justice with Judge Mablean. We're back with the case of Sarah Decker, who is suing Haley Lyles for property damage.
She came home from work, according to her testimony. She saw red dye on the floor, on the carpeting. So no questions were asked that night, but you were the only one at home, right?
Yes. I was asleep at the time of her coming home.
Oh, I was about to say, so why, when she came home, wouldn't you just say to her what had happened?
Yeah, and
So you were asleep when she got home?
Yes, and I didn't call her because she, like I said, she just got this new awesome TV job.
You didn't need to call her. You could just tell her when she got home. But when she woke up the next morning...
Yeah, that's when she saw it.
And asked you... Where did all this, well, at least she was polite enough not to wake you up that night. Because I'm not so sure I probably would have waken you up that night and say, what the devil is going on with all this red stuff all over the carpeting? Why wasn't the dog a white dog full of red dye?
Because I took him to the groomers. I even have the receipt for it.
Excuse me?
I took him to the groomers to get the dye out because I figured she didn't want to come home to a dog with dye all over it. So I went and took the dog to the groomers to get cleaned. Like I said, I do have the receipt for $125.
So you took the dog, so the dog gets into dye.
Yes.
And it's her dog.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And it's her dye.
Yes.
That was in her room.
Yes.
So it's all her responsibility.
Indeed. But
so then why would you take her dog to the groomer?
Because, like I said, I do go to bed early. I didn't want her to come home with... And I have always watched after 2 weeks.
No. You answer my question because it sounds like a whole bunch of bull to me. As opposed to getting the dye out of the carpeting, which was the responsibility of both of you, which could have caused the landlord to require you to change all of the carpeting as opposed to cleaning it, the longer you allow the dye to stay into the carpeting.
I had attempted to clean it, but it only made things worse. It made the stains even bigger than they had been, and nothing was working.
So why wouldn't you go rent a carpet cleaner and clean the carpeting?
It was her dog that did it. And yeah,
so then why did you pay for her dog if it was her dog that did it?
I'm a good roommate because I care about her and she was my friend. And
no, you're not about to try to start crying on me over that.
I'm not crying, but I'm just saying that her and okay. Her and I have always been very good friends, and I've always really been there for her. And yeah,
and that doesn't mean that you're not there for her now, but your explanation defied logic, so she didn't believe you.
Judge Mablean's verdict when Justice with Judge Mablean returns. Promotional consideration provided by... You're watching Justice with Judge Mablean.
Did it appear to you that your dog had been groomed?
I mean, it looked the way it did when I left home. It was a white dog. It doesn't really make sense to me.
I don't believe any of that story about the dog knocking the dye over and the dog getting it all over him and you taking the dog to the groomer as opposed to cleaning up the mess at the house. It just doesn't make sense. And you didn't have to go through all of that. If it's her dog, then clearly it's her dog's fault. If you're going to blame it on the dog, then leave the evidence so she can see that it's her dog and her dog's fault. I think you just made all this up. I don't know where this receipt came from. It doesn't have a date. It has a date on it, but it doesn't say what was done. It doesn't tell me why. It just says pet grooming. You could have gotten this receipt off the ground when somebody left their receipt. I don't believe your story because it absolutely makes no sense. So I'm going to order you to pay for half of the carpet cleaning. Both of you are responsible for it. No, if you drop the dye and stuff, no, that's on you. Pay the $465, judgment for the plaintiff.
All rise.
Judge Mablean has ruled in favor of the plaintiff. The defendant is ordered to pay $465.
You should have just told the truth about the hair dye.
I did tell the truth, and I moved out because you didn't believe me.
Production of Entertainment Studios.